Scientists who study and measure human behavior find that buying a home is one of the most stressful experiences of our lives.
There have been several lawsuits in real estate recently, and they're creating some really big waves and bringing up a lot of questions. Many people are asking themselves if a buyer's agent is even necessary, and I think it's a great question. I'm going to be honest, there's close to 5,000 licensed real estate agents in San Francisco, and a small percentage of them are actually extraordinary agents. And since the settlement calls into question who is responsible for paying the fees of buyer's agents, buyers are likely going to think long and hard about whether or not they need an agent. And if they do want one, I think they're going to be looking for the very best representation.
You know, this town has some really outstanding real estate people.
I'm excited by this change because I think as a buyer, you deserve really great representation. But before you decide to sign that soon-to-be mandated buyer's agreement, let me walk you through what your options are if you do want to brave the buying process without an agent.
Well, what are we waiting for?
Number 1, finding the property. A good portion of the inventory is actually available to you through various online platforms. And if you're the buyer and you're finding the home, what else is there? Many buyers that we actually work with are so on top of their searches that they may see a property online before we do. Some actually text us within seconds of something coming on the market. Finding the property is actually not the hard part, unless it's not listed publicly. If you don't have an agent, you're not going to have access to off-market listings. Off-market listings are attached to sellers who want to sell their homes without them being publicly listed on the market. Some sellers do this for privacy reasons. The more expensive the home is, the more common it is. We see this a lot above the $6 million mark and a ton above the $10 million mark. If you're not working with an agent in that price point, you're likely missing about 50% of the inventory that's often shown early before it comes online, in which case it's often sold early before it comes online. Other times a seller is ready to move out, but the selling season is not quite right for their particular home. So they would sell early, but only for the right price and prior to prepping it, or they'll just wait and bring it on the market in a few months. I'm Ruth Krishnan, and I'm founder of the Krishnan team. My team and I have been ranked among the top agents in San Francisco for over a decade, and every day we help buyers and sellers just like you looking to make that smooth move into or within San Francisco, and we'd love to be your San Francisco real estate resource.
John, that's the company whose ad I saw in the paper today.
Well, where is it?
Here it is. That may be the very help we need.
Now let's get back to it. Number 2, accessing the property.
Thousands of people get a big thrill out of looking at model houses, and a much bigger thrill when they buy one. This couple is going through a model house now. Suppose we follow them.
Once you found the property, you may find to access the property without an agent to be a little bit limited. Beginning in July, buyers are not going to be able to see a home by appointment without a signed broker's agreement. This is part of the new settlement. This means that you'll need to wait for an open house. So what's the problem with that? Well, in San Francisco, preemptive offers can and do happen. It's not unusual for a home to never make it to an open house due to an aggressive buyer snatching it up first. Should you see a property that you do want to write an early offer on, figuring out whether or not it's a good idea and how much to write that offer is going to be really challenging for you to do on your own. You're going to need to determine the value of the property by doing a competitive analysis of similar properties and know how to assess what the seller may or may not accept. Spoiler alert, it's probably not list price. Number 3, determine the value.
Phil, this is the kind of home we're looking for.
It's the best group of homes in that price class we've had yet.
After you find the home that you want to buy, you're going to need to figure out what it's worth. Many times properties in San Francisco could be listed 10 or 50% under the number that it's actually going to sell for, and this can be really confusing. Please let me be clear that the properties are not selling like 10 or 50% above market value, but they're just priced really low in order to generate a bidding war. In the past month, we actually had 2 listings that went sky high, one 42% over list price, one 30% over list price. We received a wide range of offers on these properties, and with more than a few of them clustered near the top. All of the buyers were represented by agents, all with very different levels of experience and different understandings of the market. In an ideal world, the agents would be experienced enough to spare you the time, effort, and headache of writing an offer that you have no chance of winning. I don't see a world in which a buyer would have been able to figure out the market value in these cases and thus write the winning offer on their own, but perhaps there's one out there. A lot of times my buyers ask me, is there a formula for determining this value? Unfortunately, there's not. Listing agents actually price things really differently, and the best way to know what something is worth is not only to look at the comps, but also to know the background information about how many offers were received on those homes, and also see as many of those homes as possible. Often these comparables can be months, sometimes even a year old, depending on the price point of the house that you're looking at. So they're not going to be available to view anymore. Recently, we had a buyer sign up to work with us. They had been working with an out-of-town agent, and they actually really like him. They had written 3 losing offers together. They said they thought all the houses that they had written offers on were selling for crazy numbers. And this is a common misconception when you're not receiving the right education. They said the listing agent had told them numbers that they thought that the house might sell for, and they wrote offers close to those numbers, only for those homes to sell for $300,000 over those numbers. The reality is that it's not really as unpredictable as it seems when you're given the right education up front.
Much of the home buyer's unease results from not knowing what's going on.
Ideally, you want to get a keen understanding of the interest levels in the homes, how many offers are expected. Keep in mind that the listing agent's job is to sell the house for as much as possible. So being able to glean when there might be a little bit of over-optimism involved is definitely required. On the flip side, the listing agent knows that the way to sell the house for the highest number is actually to get as many offers as possible. So they may not want to scare off buyers, even if they know they're not going to win, by telling them higher numbers or even accurate numbers, because the more offers that they get, the higher the number they're going to be able to negotiate. Also, keep in mind that if the house is competitive, the listing agent is going to respond a lot faster and more transparently to an agent who has a proven track record of success than to an attorney or a buyer representing themselves, or even to an agent that doesn't seem to know what they're doing. This honestly just comes down to the level of experience with who they think is going to make their life and the life of the seller the easiest by understanding the process and the details involved. To get to the value, you're going to need to make adjustments for things like streets. Some are more valuable than others, bedroom or bathroom count, the size of the backyard, if there is one, the level of finishes, walkability, microclimates. You also need to have a good understanding of what's going on in the market at a particular time that each of those houses were sold. If you want to be sure about the price, ideally you would have visited as many of those homes to make sure the photos shown online accurately represent the home. Often they look very different in person than online. Also, were there red flags in those disclosure package? Did the home have a cracked foundation or a big pest report? Those kinds of things aren't typically advertised. Also, keep in mind that real estate stats are really old and the market moves super quickly. So the best way to know what's going on any given day is to have written an offer or been involved in an offer that same week and the week before. If interest rates were different at the time of that comparable sale, that should also be factored in. Or if something was going on geopolitically, that would be good to know. These items can also affect what the home sold for. Number 4, my favorite, can you get a lower price? Depending on how it's priced or if it's been sitting for a while, there's a good chance that it could sell at or below the current price point. In that case, sometimes the answer is not actually what it's worth, but what the seller is willing to take.
Let's hear what the man has to offer.
How much you want for them?
Well, let me see. I really don't know how much to ask.
You'll want to carefully consider the negotiation strategy to find a way to land on a number that you want to end on while still not presenting something that's so low that the seller's not inclined to continue the conversation with you.
Okay, $8.
$8?
There's a lot to go wrong in these kinds of negotiations that can potentially kill a deal or put the seller in a position where you find them digging their heels in.
Okay, $8.50.
So,
We've actually sold a few houses in the past year where buyers were able to get even lower than they thought simply by using some of my negotiation tactics that managed to keep sellers engaged while still, in some cases, ratifying an offer that was in one case over $1 million below asking, and in many other cases up to $500,000 below the current asking price. Okay, so once you get the value nailed down, you have 4 options at this point. Number 1, you could hire an attorney to help you. I think that attorneys often do these transactions for relatively low fees. Number 2, you could attempt to enlist the listing agent to help you. We're often actually approached by buyers who want to work with us directly when we're on the listing side. Sometimes they want a reduced fee in the form of a kickback, and other times they just want to try to get what they think will be a competitive advantage in a multiple offer situation. In this case, they're assuming incorrectly, in my particular case, that the listing agent will be more motivated to get paid on both sides of the transaction, giving them a better edge. This practice is actually called dual agency, and it's legal in California. And I don't like to work on both sides of the transaction. I've done this twice out of over 1,000 transactions. So it's not something that's part of my practice. It feels icky to me, and I value being in a relationship where I'm the trusted advisor. I feel pretty strongly about this topic, actually. And one of the unfortunate side effects of this settlement is that I think we're actually going to see a lot more dual agency going forward. Number 3, you can waive representation. This means that the listing agent will do both sides, but they only have a fiduciary duty to the seller, so they don't need to explain anything to you. They don't help you negotiate. This is clearly a very bad idea, and one I'm actually really worried about buyers, particularly buyers in lower price points, being tempted to take, where they're hoping to save on fees and they don't actually understand the risks involved. Number 4, you can write your own offer. I've yet to see one of these be successful on my listings, but I've had it happen a handful of times with somebody who actually, let's say they're in tech and then they got a license just so they could lower fees on their own buying process, and it's never worked. Okay, but before writing the offer, you want to make sure that you understand the disclosure package. Now, with a deep dive in the disclosure package takes many, many hours. So we save the deep dive till after we decide whether or not there's even a budget for the house. Disclosure packages vary from about 300 pages all the way up to well over 500 pages. You can actually hire an attorney to help you understand the contract and the terms. I think you'd be hard-pressed to find an attorney who understands if a $15,000 pest report should be a deal breaker and what it would cost you to get those items addressed, and if there may be any additional underlying problems. There are copious amounts of nuances here that we go over with our buyers, and every single property is different, and there's just too many to explain, and this video is already getting long, but I'll name a few. You'll need to understand the current insurance environment, if the home has some red flags for not being insurable or having challenges on insurances. I've done a separate video on this. Other things would be matters affecting title. Some of these can include whether or not that house has limitations on building or expanding it. Foundations can be another thing that are sometimes tricky. Some are brick, others are below grade, and though neither of these are good, some are solvable, some are common, some are bigger problems than others. And if you do need to get an engineer in to evaluate it so that you can decide whether or not something is a big deal, and you need to do so in the next 48 hours, so that you can write a competitive offer. Hopefully you have a good contact for one. The list goes on, but this is a few things just to give you a taste. On attorneys, as far as I know, attorneys are paid on an hourly basis. The average agent in San Francisco writes, believe it or not, 8 offers before getting the client into contract. We actually only write 2 on average. We spend anywhere between 8 and 15 hours writing an offer for a client by the time we've reviewed disclosures, gone over the offer, reviewed the comps, and visited the property. At $5,000 to $1,000 an hour, this could be anywhere between $4,000 and $18,000 per offer. If you're unlucky enough to write 8 offers, which quite frankly I think will be the case working in this way, it will be $32,000 to $144,000. Since you're going at it on your own and an attorney doesn't actually do these things, I'm not including the time it takes to get educated on the market, track off-market homes, or go to homes with you in person to evaluate whether or not the home is actually a good fit or a good home at all. Depending on your purchase price and how much you value your own time on an hourly basis, this may not be a bad option, assuming they can actually even get you into contract on a house. I don't know many listing agents that are going to feel that an attorney or even an inexperienced agent is going to have the ability to do any of this well. And if there's multiple offers, more than likely the agent's going to recommend to the seller negotiating with a different offer rather than working with an attorney because the risks are just going to be too high. Also, keep in mind that if the listing agent is unsure of the quality of the representation that you have and thus how well prepared you are to close, then more than likely you're going to need to pay significantly more than the next buyer to win. So factor in all this at an additional maybe $100,000 to $200,000 premium to the amount that you're going to need to overpay for the seller to justify this level of risk. Number 5. Now let's just say that you somehow managed to get yourself into contract. The rest should be easy. Well, sometimes it actually is, and sometimes it's not. I can't possibly go into all the details about the things that you might face during escrow, but I'm going to briefly describe a few things that we often navigate. Negotiating punch lists on new construction. Hopefully the person that you've worked with is savvy enough to have written a bulletproof warranty for you if you bought something that was just built. Additionally, finding home insurance at a reasonable cost, negotiating lower appraised prices, negotiating or fighting for appraisals that don't come in, negotiating or fighting appraisals that don't come in at value, dealing with challenges that come up in the loan, like a lender realizes that they're not going to be able to insure because of the way an insurance policy is written on a building. If an issue with a loan arises, and they do, being able to partner with a lender to solve the problem or help you switch to a different lender who's a better fit, that would actually require negotiating an extension of the contract, which could put your earnest money funds at risk depending on how the offer is structured. Hopefully you picked the right lender to begin with. Realtors don't receive any sort of kickback from a mortgage professional, but we do make recommendations to professionals that we've worked with a lot because we know they're going to do what it takes to close the loan, be responsive, navigate challenges, and also provide the best rates to our clients. Obviously, if a lender is getting 20 or 30 deals from an agent a year, they're going to prioritize you as a client over others and work harder on your behalf to keep the relationship with the realtor going strong.
Jim, we're glad to have mortgage bankers like you represent us as our loan correspondents. It's more efficient and less expensive.
Additionally, making sure that the mandated forms are returned to the listing agent, negotiating contract extensions, and the necessary communication between the lender and the escrow officer to keep things running smoothly so that you can be at work doing your own job.
Relax. Professionals in real estate and mortgage lending are experts at fulfilling a dream.
I'm not sure how all this settlement is going to shake out, but I would suspect that the industry is actually going to become more bifurcated. I think there's going to be more discount options on the buyer side than ever before, and there will also continue to be experienced agents who charge a higher rate than those discount options to represent both buyers and sellers. If you're interested in learning more about the settlement and the potential effects of it, feel free to watch this video or subscribe to our channel for more videos like this one. I truly believe that buyer's agents are very valuable and they're going to save you a ton of time and money. And if you're looking for a team with a lot of experience to help you navigate this process, we'd love to help. Feel free to reach out to us at hello@ruthkrishnan.com or leave a comment below.
You can always tell, can't you? A town with good real estate people is a more substantial community because more people own their own homes. That's right.